Joined by former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel. Good evening, Mr. Manuel. Thank you very much for your time. When you listen to how angry our Finance Minister Tito Mboweni is in Parliament about what he calls thieving, what is your feeling as a former Finance Minister yourself? What is your response to that?
I am entirely at one with Minister Mboweni, Sally. This thieving has to stop. I mean, you know, we've seen drastic action. You can go and read the Bible and find out how Christ acted when he said, "My Father's house should be a house of prayer. It's become a den of thieves." And then he beat them. And I think that Minister Mboweni is saying he will use the law to beat those thieves. And I support him entirely. And I think he has powers under the Public Finance Management Act. There's Section 16 that allows for funds to be used in an emergency situation. And there's Section 79 that allows for the suspension of the normal regulations applying to all manner of state expenditure, including procurement, in conditions that are justifiable. And I think the COVID-19 pandemic creates justifiable conditions. So I want to support the minister and say, shut the door and don't let another dime out. And at the same time, ask all of the law enforcement agencies to deal with those who've been caught inside the room with their fingers or their hands in the cookie jar, so that we can deal with both and prevent these issues going forward. I've also heard the Secretary General of the ANC talk about family members. Well, I'd like to draw the attention of Mr. Magashule to the Financial Intelligence Center Act that defines what the Act calls it used to be called politically exposed individuals. Now it's called domestic, prominent, influential persons. And it doesn't only preclude these people from dealing with the state, it also sets out the conditions for their first-degree relatives. That's children, stepchildren, brothers, sisters, wives, ex-wives. And I think the Act provides for it. And if there is a marginal deficiency in the Act right now, the Act says it can be remedied by regulations, and again, the ball is in the court of Minister Mboweni, who can regulate to deal with this issue to ensure that there's no uncertainty about the fact that special provisions apply to people who are politically exposed, and that includes people, former premiers, they include leaders of political organizations. Let's not beat about the bush on these issues. We must preclude this, and I think it's necessary for us not to throw lines into the water to try and catch guppies. We need to ensure that we can stop the rot right now. And Sally, while we're about it, there are other things as well. I mean, I was pretty struck this weekend when a trade unionist claims ownership of a car that costs more than 3 million rand. How does a trade unionist whose life is meant to be at the service of workers to improve on their quality of life, how does he afford a vehicle of more than 3 million rand that he can lend to his friend? How does an individual walk into car dealerships and buy 5 cars on one day, one of which is a Lamborghini and 2 of those are Porsches? Why does society tolerate this kind of behavior? Why do we sell our people down the river so that some people can flaunt conspicuous consumption? There's something fundamentally wrong. I think we have to call it out. I think that what has happened now has taken it too far. And in respect of the domestic, prominent, influential persons, all members of royal families are also covered in that list. So they may not be members of parliament, but they're covered in that list, and it does call for special provisions. All that we must do is ensure that the Act or the various laws are actually made to apply.
Let me just get clarity. Are you saying that Ace Magashule is wrong when he says it's perfectly legal if you declare it?
No, it's not legal. There must be very special provisions. There must be very special provisions. In fact, the Act calls for extreme due diligence to be applied to these politically exposed persons and their first-degree relatives. So just declaring it is not okay. You can't steal and say, well, it's okay, I've told you, I've stolen. Society can't be built on that kind of basis. And one would hope that people who occupy senior positions in political organizations have the justice issues. All of those are live. All of those are live and must be called out and acted upon. Let's not pretend that we don't notice the rot. Let's not pretend that we can have a society where consequences don't matter.
So what do you think the heart of the problem is? Is it that people should stop voting for the ANC where corruption exists? Or do you think the problem goes deeper than that, and it's simply that as a society we are rotten to the core and people carry on being corrupt because there simply aren't consequences? Or is there something else at play here?
I think that we're a country that has lost its moorings. And it's a deep, deep tragedy because we've come from a very special place as a country. The transition from apartheid to democracy has been a very special process, but I think we've lost our moorings, and now we have to see, there have to be actions. You know, let's just remind ourselves of what those high points were. Tony Ngeni was a member of parliament, chaired a portfolio committee, suggested that he could influence an arms procurement process, got a discount on a car, didn't declare the discount, and was jailed for fraud. That's what he was jailed for not declaring the discount. Now, we've fallen from that to a situation such as we're discussing today. And it is a fundamental problem. I think that there's adequate legislation. All that we have to do is ensure that the law takes its course, and some of the actions will have to be retrospective to the present. Once the door is shut, continue to act against those who violated the law, regardless of their station in life.
What should happen next in the ANC? Tito Mboweni, you say, is doing absolutely the right thing, should shut the door on that funding, go back to the open tender system. But within the ANC, we've seen our president come out very strongly against corruption. We are hearing all the right things in a way from the ANC, though at the same time, Ace Magashule suggesting that some of the corruption allegations could be as a result of infighting. So do you think the ANC is saying and doing the right things around corruption to course correct? Has there been a sea change in the organisation?
Sally, let's just be clear. It must apply to the ANC like it must apply to the EFF, the IFP, the UDM, the DA, and every political party. These are not ANC-specific matters. They're societal matters, and they're societal matters that, in fact, impact on what society expects of people placed in positions of leadership. And let's not beat about the bush on this issue. The ANC has no special status in society when it comes to violations of law. I mean, the fact that the ANC could ask for the reinstatement of two individuals who've been fingered in the Mutau report for their role in facilitating corruption of BBS and the theft of billions from pensioners in Limpopo province is unforgivable. You can't behave like that simply because members are senior in the African National Congress. It is wrong in every sense of the word, and let's call it out for what it is.
Thank you very much. Former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel, strong message this evening.